Cool. We're building bookshelves this week. And this very well be my first YouTube video, so we'll see how that works out. Let's rip down some plywood. Commence. I ripped down 8 sheets of plywood, 12 inches, or rather 11 and 15/16. As soon as I had all of my strips cut out, I decided to start working on the bookshelves.
I don't wanna do this anymore. I wanna build bookshelves instead. Why does life have to be so hard?
After some time and much frustration and 2 trips to the hardware store, an outlet was moved successfully and approved by our electrician later on. Before adding any risers, I needed to get rid of all of the remaining base trim.
What is that?
I'm so adamant about not covering these wires up. And then I open up the baseboard. Onto building some risers. I opted to make the risers out of plywood instead of a 2x material. They were cut at 4 3/8. So we're just building a box. I marked where the studs were gonna be so I wouldn't put those supports in the way of where I needed to drill later on. I tacked everything in with a brad nailer, and then I went back in and added screws for support. I added 3-inch screws into the studs. These risers are 12 3/4 of an inch deep, allots for the trim on the face of each bookshelf. This one happens to be, I think, 37 inches long. How I figured that is I needed a 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch on the right side to fit the baseboard in. And then I went straight to the corner of the wall on the left side. I'm just marking 3/4 of an inch inset to account for trim later on. Here I'm checking to make sure the trim depth will be good, and it is. Now we're moving on to above the window. So we got our left side frame out, and now we're building our little boxes for above the window. I didn't pre-cut anything, mostly because I did not trust that everything would be exactly as I planned it. The plan was mostly so I knew I bought the right amount of plywood. I did not trust the walls, which worked out. I shouldn't have trusted the walls, so. "12 inches is the negative space on the inside. Before I added the third window Ux, I added my right side shelf. Measured the distance between the upper window shelves and the right shelf to make sure that third shelf would fit nice and snug. Okay, week 1. As we started framing out the bookshelves, started around the window, kind of working left to right just because we want the tops to match up. We kind of pivoted from the original design. We were essentially going to put an L-shaped shelf here in this corner, but we just did not have enough structural support in the walls. This was like an add-on. It used to be a porch, we think. Some of the studs in the walls are what should be, and some of them are just weird. Made this into just 2 separate bookshelves instead of one big like L-shaped, which changed this corner as well. We're gonna do that same thing. It's supposed to be like an open floating L, and now it's gonna be 2 separate. Once we got to this part, after doing some math, that was gonna be like really, really small, and then this one was gonna be really big. So I don't know if you can tell, but the bottom riser, we have like 10 inches that we scooted the bookshelf over to kind of split the difference of the wall. Instead of having one big and one small, they look a little more uniform and everything's symmetrical and pretty and intentional. Next week, we're gonna work on doing all of the shelves and then finishing over the daybed with little floating 2 shelves that go up and around the daybed, and then 1 skinny shelf to cap off the whole thing. All the planning in the world cannot prep you for when you actually start building. So just because walls aren't level, the studs don't have what you want them to have, and you pivot. That's okay. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering why we aren't using Billy bookcases, as everyone does. I think that the space is a little too specific. Not a big fan of particle board, which is what Billy bookcases are, and then having to fill in all of those shelf bracket holes. Not a big fan of it. I'll try to explain my process as I'm going, in case you also want to build something custom. Try to bring my brain outside of my body. Once I get all of the plywood finished, I'm gonna show y'all what we did to like prep for trim pieces, just because you kind of have to work backwards in order to make sure everything is buttoned up. Do me a favor by subscribing and liking and commenting on my videos. That would be amazing.